My name is Wendy Snyder, 32 years old, and up until a few months ago, I thought I had a life people envied. We had the house in a quiet neighborhood. Not fancy, not huge, but ours. The kind of place where the floors creaked just enough to feel lived in, where sunlight hit the kitchen table every morning at the same angle, like it had memorized our routine. Daniel used to stand there with his coffee, scrolling through his phone, half listening to me talk about work. It was ordinary, safe, predictable, and I loved it. We both had good jobs, stable income, no dramatic fights, no obvious cracks. To everyone on the outside, we were that couple. The one people quietly compared themselves to and wondered how we made it look so easy. But there was one thing missing, and the longer it stayed missing, the heavier it became. A child. For 2 years, we tried. At first, it was exciting, hopeful. Every month felt like a new beginning, a new chance. We joked about timing, about maybe tonight being the night, about baby names we'd never seriously considered before. But slowly, the excitement faded. And in its place came silence. Every negative test didn't just disappoint us, it took something away. A little more hope, a little more energy, a little more of whatever it was that made us feel like we were moving forward. I started avoiding baby announcements. Daniel stopped making jokes. We stopped talking about it altogether. I remember one night more clearly than the others. I was sitting on the bathroom floor, the test still in my hand. Another negative, another quiet confirmation that something inside me just wasn't working the way it should. Daniel stood in the doorway, watching me. He didn't come closer, didn't say anything. Just leaned his shoulder against the frame like he didn't know how to cross the distance between us. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe because it felt like my fault. Maybe because I needed it to be someone's fault. He shook his head. "It's not you." But he didn't sound convinced. And somehow, that hurt more. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong. That was the worst part. No clear diagnosis, no explanation. Just that vague, frustrating phrase, unexplained infertility. As if giving it a name made it easier to live with. It didn't. It just meant there was nothing to fix. Daniel was the one who brought up IVF. It was late. We were sitting on the couch, Thor sprawled between us like he owned the place. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. "I've been thinking," Daniel said quietly. I turned to him. "We could try IVF." His voice wasn't hopeful. It was careful, measured, like he'd rehearsed the sentence a dozen times before saying it out loud. "It might be our best shot." I didn't hesitate. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I was. Because the idea of doing nothing, of staying stuck like this forever, terrified me more. "Okay," I said. And just like that, we stepped into something that would change everything. IVF wasn't just emotional. It was financial. Insurance barely covered anything. We dipped into our savings, cutting corners in other parts of our life just to make it work. But I didn't care. Because in my head, there was an end goal. A baby. Our baby. That made everything worth it. Daniel took over most of the process. At first, I was grateful. He handled the appointments, the calls, the endless paperwork. He told me I should focus on staying healthy, reducing stress. "I've got this," he said. "You've been through enough already." And I believed him, because that's what partners do, right? They carry the weight when you're too tired to lift it yourself. I still went to the important appointments, the major ones, the ones that mattered. I remember the day of the embryo transfer like it's burned into my memory. The clinic smelled sterile and cold. Everything was white and too clean, like a place where emotions didn't belong. Daniel held my hand the entire time. "This is it," he whispered. "This is where our life changes." I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw nothing but certainty. So I held on to that. I even took a picture of us that day. Just the two of us, smiling awkwardly under fluorescent lights. I thought it was the beginning of something beautiful. And for a while, it felt like it was. I got pregnant. The test turned positive, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. I just stared at it, waiting for it to disappear like all the others had. But it didn't. It stayed. Real. Solid. Finally. Daniel picked me up and spun me around the kitchen like we were in some cliché movie scene. Thor bolted out of the room like we'd lost our minds. We laughed. God, we laughed so much that day. The first few months were peaceful. Morning sickness? Sure. Mood swings. Exhaustion. But I welcomed all of it. Every symptom felt like proof. Like confirmation that something inside me was finally going right. We started building a future. Daniel painted the nursery over one weekend, swearing under his breath while Thor tracked blue paw prints across the floor. I sat in the doorway, watching them, one frustrated, one completely unbothered. And I remember thinking, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. By 5 months, everything felt real. My body was changing. My world was shifting. And for the first time in years, I felt complete. Daniel started assembling the crib one night, hunched over the pieces with a YouTube tutorial playing beside him. "These instructions are written by psychopaths," he muttered. I laughed from the couch, one hand resting on my stomach. Maybe it's a test. If you can't build the crib, you don't get the baby. He looked up at me, smirking. Too late. I'm already in. That line stayed with me. I'm already in. At the time, it felt comforting. Now, it feels like a warning I didn't understand. Everything changed on a Tuesday night. There was nothing special about it. No warning signs. No dramatic buildup. Just a normal evening. Daniel went to bed early. I stayed up, sitting at the kitchen table, going through insurance paperwork for the delivery. Bills, forms, coverage details. Boring, routine, safe. Until I saw it. A number. A donor ID. At first, I almost skipped over it, but something about it didn't sit right. I leaned closer, read it again, then again. My heart started to beat faster. Not because I understood what I was seeing, but because something deep inside me knew. I shouldn't be seeing it. I grabbed another document, my patient file, compared the numbers. Once, twice, 3 times. They didn't match. I told myself it was a mistake. It had to be. Clinics mix things up all the time, right? Paperwork errors happen. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. But my hands were already shaking. My chest felt tight, like something invisible was pressing down on me. Slowly, deliberately. I checked again. Slower this time. Carefully. Line by line, number by number. No matter how many times I looked, the answer didn't change. The donor ID listed in the procedure was not mine. Something inside me went cold. Not panicked, not frantic, just cold. Like my body had skipped straight past fear and landed somewhere deeper. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling, listening to his steady breathing, counting it, matching it, trying to anchor myself to something real, because suddenly, everything felt fake. The next morning, I waited. I watched him get ready for work like nothing had changed, like the ground beneath my feet hadn't just cracked open. He kissed my forehead before leaving. "Get some rest," he said softly. "I will," I replied. And for a second, just 1 second, I almost believed him again. As soon as the door closed, I moved. I drove straight to the clinic. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I barely remember the drive, only the feeling. That sick, sinking feeling in my stomach that kept getting heavier the closer I got. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, maybe more, because once I walked inside, there would be no going back. When I finally did, I forced myself to stay calm, polite, controlled. I was reviewing some paperwork, I said to the receptionist, and I noticed something strange. Can you confirm which embryo was used for my procedure? She smiled, typed, paused. Then her expression changed. It was subtle, but I saw it. That's odd, she said, squinting at the screen. It looks like the embryo used wasn't the one originally assigned to your case. My heart slammed against my ribs. What do you mean? I asked. She hesitated, then said the words that shattered everything. A different donor specimen was used instead. I swallowed hard. That would have required my consent. She looked up at me, confused, almost concerned. It says here your husband authorized the change. And just like that, everything inside me broke. I don't remember leaving the clinic. I don't remember getting into my car. I don't remember driving home. All I remember is standing in front of my front door, key in hand, heart pounding, knowing that whatever was waiting for me inside was going to divide my life into two parts, before and after. I opened the door, and Daniel was already there, sitting on the couch, crying. You went to the clinic, he said. Not a question, a confession. I stood there, frozen, every instinct in me screaming to run, but my body refusing to move. Why? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. He looked up at me, and in his eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Not guilt, not fear, but certainty. And that's when I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. For a few seconds, neither of us moved. The air between us felt thick, like it was pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. Daniel's eyes were red, his face pale, like he'd been crying for a while. But even then, something about it felt off, too controlled, too prepared. My friend from the clinic texted me. He said quietly, "She told me you were there, that you were asking questions." Of course. Of course he already knew. Of course this wasn't spontaneous. I stepped further into the room, closing the door behind me with a soft click. It sounded louder than it should have. Why? I asked again. This time, my voice didn't shake. It was cold, flat, almost unrecognizable. He looked down at his hands, rubbing them together like he was trying to warm them up. You wouldn't understand, he muttered. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Try me. He stood up slowly, like every movement cost him something. I was trying to do what's best for our child. Our child. The words hit me like a slap. By replacing me? I shot back. By taking me out of the equation entirely? His jaw tightened. That's not what I did. Then explain it to me, I said, stepping closer. Because from where I'm standing, you made a decision about my body, my child, my life, without even telling me. He hesitated, just for a second. But I saw it. And in that hesitation, something inside me cracked open. I chose a donor, he finally said. The room went silent. A donor with better genetic traits, he continued, his voice gaining strength like he'd convinced himself this made sense. No family history of disease, high IQ, strong physical health. I just wanted to give our baby the best possible start. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for the part where he said, I'm sorry, I messed up. But it never came. Better than mine? I asked slowly. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing keeping me from screaming. So you decided that, I said. On your own. You looked at me, your wife, and thought, yeah, we can do better than her. That's not what this is about, he said quickly, stepping toward me. I stepped back, instinctively, like he'd reached out with something sharp instead of his hand. Then what is it about, Daniel? I snapped. Because right now it sounds like you erased me from my own child's life and called it love. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now, I thought you'd understand eventually, he said. If I told you up front, you would have said no, and I couldn't risk that. The words hit harder than anything else he'd said. You couldn't risk my opinion? I whispered. I couldn't risk our future, he shot back. There it was. The justification. The logic. The complete and total lack of remorse. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. You lied to me for months, I said. You forged consent. You manipulated a medical procedure. And your defense is, you were protecting the future? He looked at me like I was the one being unreasonable. It's still our baby, he said. You're the one carrying it. You're the one who will raise it. Biology doesn't change that. Except it did. It changed everything. I felt something inside me shift, not break, not shatter, but harden. When were you planning to tell me? I asked. He didn't answer. After the baby was born? I pushed. 5 years from now? Never? His silence said everything. I nodded slowly. Okay. That one word seemed to confuse him. Okay? He repeated. I turned away, grabbing my keys from the counter. I need to leave. His head snapped up. What? No, Wendy, wait. We can talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, I said, heading toward the hallway. Not right now. You're overreacting, he said, his voice rising for the first time. You're letting emotions cloud. I spun around so fast it made him stop mid-sentence. Emotions? I said, my voice dangerously quiet. You think this is about emotions? He froze. This is about trust, I continued. Something you just destroyed. For a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Fear. Real fear. But it disappeared just as quickly. I did this for us, he insisted. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. You did this for you. I walked past him without another word. Thor was sitting by the door, watching us with wide eyes. Even he could feel it. The tension. The shift. The end of something. I grabbed his carrier, scooping him up despite his protests. At least he was still mine. At least something in this house still was. You're taking the cat? Daniel asked, like that was the part he couldn't process. I looked at him one last time. Yeah, I said. I am. And then I left. The air outside hit my face like a shock. Cold. Real. Grounding. I didn't know where I was going. Didn't have a plan. Didn't even fully understand what had just happened. All I knew was I couldn't stay. Thor meowed from his carrier in the passenger seat as I drove aimlessly through the streets. I know, I whispered. I know. Everything I thought I had, every plan, every dream, every version of the future I had built in my head, was gone. And the worst part? I still didn't have the full truth, because something about his story didn't sit right. Perfect donor, better genetics. It was too clean, too convenient. And Daniel wasn't a man who did things halfway, which meant one thing. He was still lying. I just didn't know how deep it went yet. I didn't go back home that night. Or the next. Or the one after that. I ended up at my friend Lisa's apartment. Unannounced. Uninvited. Barely holding it together. The moment she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't ask questions. She just stepped aside and said, "Come in." I gave her the short version. Not because there wasn't more to say, but because I couldn't say it without falling apart. That first night, I didn't sleep. I lay there in her guest room, Thor curled against my chest, staring into the dark, replaying everything, every conversation, every moment, every tiny detail I had ignored. And one thought kept repeating itself over and over. This doesn't make sense. Daniel wasn't impulsive. He didn't take risks. He planned, calculated, controlled. So, no. This wasn't some last-minute decision about better genetics. This was something else. Something deeper. Something deliberate. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Vanessa Carter. Sharp. direct. The kind of woman who didn't waste time pretending things were better than they were. After I explained everything, she leaned back in her chair, fingers tapping lightly against the desk. "If you walk away now," she said, "you're still legally tied to that child." My stomach dropped. "What?" "You're married," she continued. "That means you're presumed to be the mother. Biology doesn't automatically change that." I felt sick. "So, even if it's not mine, you could still be financially responsible," she finished. For a second, I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was a trap. "What if I prove what he did?" I asked. Her eyes sharpened. "Then everything changes." That was the moment something inside me shifted. Completely. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to cry. And I sure as hell wasn't going to stay. I was going to end this. Properly. Over the next few days, I started putting everything together. Bank accounts, documents, anything with my name on it. I moved what I could, secured what mattered, not out of revenge, but survival. Meanwhile, Daniel kept calling, texting, apologizing, explaining. "Please come home. We can fix this. I still love you." I ignored most of it, until one message caught my attention. "It's not what you think." That line again. That same vague, slippery excuse. I stared at it for a long time. Then I realized something. He wasn't trying to convince me. He was trying to control what I didn't know. So I went back to the house. I made sure he wasn't there. Used my own key to let myself in like a stranger. Everything looked the same. Too clean. Too normal. Like nothing had happened. But I wasn't the same. I went straight to his office. His laptop was sitting on the desk. Closed. Silent. For a moment, I hesitated. Because this was a line. A boundary. Then I remembered the clinic. The lies. The decision he made without me. And I opened it. He hadn't changed his password. Of course he hadn't. Daniel always believed he was smarter than everyone else. At first, there was nothing. Work emails, invoices, boring, everyday things. Then I checked the deleted folder. And that's when everything fell apart for the second time. Emails. Dozens of them. Between Daniel and someone named Claire. The subject lines were casual at first. "Long time no talk. How have you been?" But as I scrolled, they changed. More personal. More intimate. And then, one line made my entire body go numb. "Are you sure you want to do this?" My fingers trembled as I opened the thread. Claire. His ex-girlfriend. The one he dated for years before me. The one he once told me was completely in the past. The emails told a different story. They had reconnected. Years ago. Before we even started IVF. She knew about our struggles. Knew how badly we wanted a child. And then, he asked her. Not for advice. Not for support. For her eggs. I stopped breathing. He didn't choose a random donor. He didn't care about perfect genetics. He chose her. Because he wanted her child. Inside my body. I sat there, staring at the screen, as the rest of the truth unfolded in front of me. They planned it. Carefully. Step by step. Timing appointments. Bypassing protocols. Making sure I would never find out. And the worst part? She asked him the same question I had. "Does Wendy know?" His answer? "She doesn't need to." Something inside me didn't break this time. It disappeared. All the love. All the trust. All the memories that used to mean something. Gone. Replaced by something colder. Sharper. Clarity. I took pictures of everything. Forwarded the emails. Saved the evidence. Then I closed the laptop. And I stopped being his wife. That night, I texted him. "We need to talk." He responded instantly. "Thank you. I knew you'd come around." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back. "Come home." But this time, I wasn't coming back to fix anything. I was coming back to end it. When he walked through that door later that evening, he looked relieved. Hopeful. Like he had already won. "Wendy," he said softly, stepping toward me. "I knew we could work through this." "Sit down," I said. Something in my tone made him stop. I pulled out my phone, pressed record. "Tell me again," I said calmly, "about the donor." He hesitated, just for a second. Then he started talking, repeating the same story, the same lies. I let him finish. Then I leaned forward. "And it has nothing to do with Claire?" I asked. The color drained from his face. Silence. That was all I needed. "I saw the emails," I said quietly. "I know everything." He broke. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But enough. Enough to confirm it. Enough to end it. "I'm filing for divorce," I said. He stared at me, like he didn't understand the words. "You can't do that," he said finally. "You're pregnant." "No," I cut him off. "You made sure of that." "Not me." His expression shifted. From shock to anger. "You're overreacting," he snapped. "This is still your child." "No," I said. And for the first time since all of this started, I felt completely certain. It's not. I stood up, picked up Thor's carrier, and walked toward the door. "Wendy, wait," he called after me. I didn't stop. Because this time, there was nothing left to save.